when I was in the classroom there were times where I was having a lousy day, but it came out in how I was being with the kids in the classroom. Apologizing doesn't take away my power. It actually gives me more.
I can't possibly be seen to make mistakes. Have you maybe a personal example?
I had an experience a couple weeks ago. My husband's a teacher, and we took 30 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to Ireland and Scotland for a week. And I had 6 girls. And yeah, they were challenging. And there was a day on the bus. I hadn't slept well that night, no excuses. I barked at one. And then they moved seats. I sat down and I was so mad on the bus in the museum. And I sat next to just a mom who was on the trip and cried. So in the morning, I saved a booth for us. So we all sat in a booth and I just straight up apologized, me owning up to my big, not pretty scene.
I took part in the training with you, Dodie and Eva, last September to become a classroom educator and how to apply these Adlerian and positive discipline principles in the classroom. And I was absolutely blown away by your facilitation skills. And it can really be called the art of facilitation, because you really practiced what we are teaching in positive discipline with the group. And to observe the two of you was just, I'm getting goosebumps now thinking back to all that I learned, and to see it in action and see this works. And even for me, I can get so lost in the detail, and how you, with so much kindness, brought it even back, always from a time management point of view, was just a learning in itself, you know. So I'm going to ask you a few questions today about how to bring this to the classroom, and we'll just go with the flow, who answers, and whatever else wants to be shared. So to introduce yourselves, I would just ask you to maybe share where you're from, and what maybe is something of interest to the viewer, you know, about each of you. Who would like to start?
Dodie, why don't you go? We're such good partners. We're like, no, you go. No, you go.
This is the challenge with Eva and I. We're so helpful with each other. I'll go first. So thanks for having me, Annette. Super honored to be here, and with my dear friend Eva. So super quick, my name is Dodie Blomberg. I live in Mesa, Arizona. I started off my career as a teacher. I taught in Tempe, Arizona for 12 years. And teaching my first year was super hard. And then a few years in, a friend said, hey, take this training. It was positive discipline in the classroom. That was 1995. And it blew my mind. Like, there were so many things in it that were completely new to me. So I've been practicing ever since. It's changed my life. I have 2 children. They're big people now. They're 25 and 28, and they're good people. And yeah, I think that's about it. And Eva is my dear friend. We actually live in the same neighborhood. We met when our kids were little. So, Eva?
And so, yes, we've been friends. And I mean, time flies so much. Our older sons are 29, or at least I think yours is almost 29. He will be soon. Mine turned 29 in January. And then our younger 2 are about the same age too, 25, 26. And it just seems like yesterday that we met at a neighborhood party and just really hit it off, because I also was a teacher for 12 years. I taught 7th grade English language arts. And then I got my master's degree in educational counseling and shifted in. I got lucky because there was an opening at the school where I worked, and I loved working at that school. And so there was an opening in the counseling office. And so I shifted from the classroom into the counseling office, but we always did a lot of work with, of course, kids in the classroom and small groups and individual work, a lot of variety there. And I was a counselor for 20 years. So I stepped away from the school system in 2018 after 32 years. I was just feeling like I needed to move into some different areas, and positive discipline has been a big part of my life. I've been a positive discipline parent for 27 years, was when I discovered the parenting program. And my dear friend Dodie Blomberg said, hey, did you know you could teach this work to other people? And I was like, wow, tell me more. And by then she had already gotten certified in the parenting work as well as the classroom work. And so I actually took the classroom training after I had shifted into the counseling office, but there were still lots and lots of opportunities for me to apply this work from the counseling perspective and the work I was doing in the schools with teachers and families and kids. And so I just really feel the power of this program to change lives because it has changed my life. And the other teachers and kids that I've worked with and parents that I've worked with have said this has changed their lives too. And so this program is so powerful that I just really feel called to spread it as far and as wide as I can, both in the parenting work as well as the classroom work.
And thank you so much for doing this, because it is there is no better word to describe it, how powerful and effective it is. And what so I was a parent educator before I took the classroom education training with you, and what really hit me, or what I learned on such a deep level, is why there is so much struggle and maybe despair, you know. And now it's not something that comes naturally to me, parenting, you know. And I think it's because, this is my observation, is it's so much about what we shouldn't do and what we can't do, and telling children what they can't do, you know, and this traditional way of maybe more on the blame side of things. And what I don't know how you say it, I wish I could give back your words, but this is how I learned it from both of you, is how can children ever learn how to do it the right way if it's not role model to them? And the two of you did that so beautifully, you know. And what comes to mind is what I hear a lot, and especially in classrooms here, I'm based in Ireland, here in the EOS, are things like teachers might say to a classroom, I will respect you once you respect me first, you know. And that's where, isn't positive discipline such a beautiful kind of different perspective? And I would love to hear what your thoughts are, why this works so well in the classroom, and why it brings more meaningful behavior out of the students.
Eva, you go first this time.
Okay, we'll take turns. Why is this so powerful? I think this is so powerful because it gives us tools that I didn't have going into my teacher training in college. I had almost no training in classroom management in the first place. And the little bit of training I did have was based in a what we call in psychology as a behaviorist approach. And the basic theory around that is that the primary motivation for human behavior is to seek reward and avoid punishment. And so all I knew to do was that when kids were bad, when they were misbehaving, I would punish. You know, there's detentions and there's phone calls home, and the phone calls home are punitive, and parent your child as being bad, and I need you to make them be good. And so there was all this negativity around misbehavior and mistakes. And then I would try to use rewards to get them to work toward being better. But what I was really missing, what was missing in my preparation for becoming a teacher, was the importance of connection. And I think one of the most important sayings that we have in positive discipline is you have to have connection before you can have correction. And so without the relationship, without kids feeling like I genuinely do care about you as a human being, and because I care about you, you're likely to reciprocate those feelings. So we have a relationship. And because of that relationship, we're more likely to work together to solve problems. And we can come together to solve those problems because of the relationship. And so when I stopped being about, you have to do it my way or else this will happen to you, this kind of underlying threat all the time, even when I wasn't making them overtly, there was always that implication, if you don't do what I tell you to do, then this is going to happen. Instead, when I started saying, you know, I'm having a problem and I need your help. I wonder how we could solve this problem together. I wonder what, and what positive discipline teaches us to do is to look beneath the behavior, like the idea that behavior is the tip of an iceberg poking out of the water, but the biggest piece of the iceberg is down here where we can't see it. And positive discipline teaches us to say, I wonder what the need is that the behavior is trying to meet. And sometimes the child knows and sometimes they don't. And this is when I say child, I mean any age, even teenagers, students. And so when I started talking with the student about, here's what I'm noticing, this is the behavior, what I'm seeing and hearing, wonder what's going on for you. And then just listening and understanding, oh, well, I need time to socialize with my friends. I need to feel like I matter to other people in the classroom. And as far as teens are concerned, a lot of their mattering goes toward mattering to their peers, right? And it's nice if I matter, but really it's their peers that are significant there. And so when we talk about ways in which their behavior is helping them feel this sense of belonging and significance with their peers, then I can also share, and I have a need as the teacher to make sure that we're accomplishing this learning and that you are, as well as your peers. How could we both get what we need? How could we cooperate with each other so that you're feeling a sense of belonging and importance, and I'm also getting to teach? And then we would brainstorm around that, we'd problem solve, we'd make a plan, and we'd move forward with that. And I tell you what, I almost never had a repeat issue with a child that I had sat down and had those conversations with. And the times that I did, I was able to bring out our plan because we wrote it down and said, this is what we decided. Is there anything here that we need to change? And usually they'd say, oh, and they get back on track because they're not trying to be bad. They're just in the moment doing their thing. And so I just think positive discipline helped me. And I had been doing this before I learned about positive discipline in the classroom, the official program. I had figured this out and used that practice. And so then when I learned about positive discipline, I felt so validated to say, oh, what I'm doing is rooted in theory. It's rooted in real psychological practice and research that says, this is what human beings, we need belonging and significance. And so I came to it a little through the back door. And once I've understood once I had that validating response, it's like, oh, now I want to do that even more because I know how much it's working and I know why. So that was kind of a long answer, but Dodie, I'll let you respond because you had a different experience as a teacher than I did.
Eva, thank you for sharing all of that. Your initial chatting about what you learned in college was the same as me, right? Like, put their name on the board, put a check, put another check, you're going to pay for that behavior. And it was exhausting. Like, it was exhausting always having to match the punishment to the behavior. And it didn't work. It just created more mischief and trouble in the classroom. And I was grumpy and they were grumpy and right. So for me, what I love about positive discipline is I see it as two levels. One is skills for teachers and one is skills for students. So just like Eva, I went into teaching with not helpful skills. I thought they were, but once you try them out, you're like, oh, this is not working. This is not working. So like I learned so many skills. Like I learned that I need to be respectful. I learned how to create cooperation. I learned how to connect, just like Eva was saying. I learned how to ask curiosity questions to find out what's happening underneath. And none of that was shared in my college training, none of that. And just like Eva, when I started using those tools and I was more respectful, things started shifting like pretty quickly, like crazy quickly. Like I'd look around like, oh my gosh, that was ridiculously easy. And then when you add on the skills for students, like there's activities to teach cooperation, respect, problem solving. And when you start teaching those skills to students, I'm going to put a little aside here. I was learning those as well because I learned those growing up. So like I'm teaching these skills to kids and I'm learning them at the same time, right? So it just like they're learning new skills. I'm learning new skills. We're putting these skills together like, like it just shifted so much. And the other piece I love is I'm still learning about this work. Like it's deeper than it looks. It's not superficial. And just like Eva, I've been practicing this a long time and I'm still learning about it. Yeah.
I'd love to get right into the next question because of what you just said, Dodie, that social and emotional learning, that like you say, isn't maybe mentioned a bit in teacher colleges or however it's referred to. But what I learned from you, and I'd love to bring this on, I'm going to share also a clip here. You had taught in the training that if that social and emotional isn't there, it's almost like it's a plate. It's the social and emotional is the plate, you explained. And if that's not like, if that connection isn't there, it's like holes in the plate, and everything that is taught from an academic point of view will just fall through the plate. Didn't I learn that from you?
I don't know if we did the plate activity in our training,
No?
but
Okay.
I'm familiar with that. And I
Yeah.
do, yes, it's a really impactful analogy.
And unfortunately, but also maybe was meant to be, this was my favorite cup and it broke and it cracked. And I filmed a clip that I'm going to link here below. And so I did this activity and I filmed myself and I poured water into it, and what I learned was that if there is a crack or holes, the more you try to stuff in and the faster you try to stuff in, the faster it all falls out at the bottom or flows out. That was an interesting realization that I had, nothing's really going to stuff these holes, right? Of that social emotional that needs to be in place. So my next question is, what can somebody, and we're going to link all the details below. I believe there's an early classroom education training coming up that the two of you can share more about. And these principles work for all ages, right? I wrote in an email this morning, it's from infancy to adolescence and possibly beyond, because we know it works in the workplace. So what might be new to somebody who embarks on this classroom education training, that they learn about these social and emotional skills that are important?
Well, I'll go first since we're taking turns, right, Eva?
I love it. So democratic.
Right? So I know that there are a lot of social emotional trainings out there that schools use, which are, they're good. But my perception is like the teacher will read a story, right? And there'll be a problem in the story. And then they'll ask the children, like, so what's the best way to solve this? A, B, C, or D? And really, for all of us humans, when it's someone else's problem and we're not emotionally attached, we can tell you the right answer, right? Hitting that kid over the head's not the right answer. Asking questions or problem solving is the right thing. And so, I mean, it's a start. It's a start of practicing social emotional skills, or how is this child feeling, right? But when it's our own self, whoa, it's hot and there's just emotion involved. And we often go to our not best self when we have a problem and we're heated up about it. So what I love about positive discipline is in class meetings, once you start teaching class meetings, we talk about real class problems, like real problems. Let me just share this lovely story. I was in a classroom probably a couple months ago, and I think it was third grade. And this teacher was new to class meetings. And I just jumped right in. And there's 3 ways to solve a problem. You can just share your problem. You can then other people, the second one is you can share and others can share how they feel about it. And then you can have problem solving help. And I guess the day before in math, it was a hot mess in the classroom. I don't know what was happening because I wasn't there, but it was not good. So we get in the circle and the teacher has a talking stick or something. And she says, so do you remember yesterday? We did not have a good experience in math. I would just like to pass this around. I'd like to hear how you feel about what happened in math yesterday. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. And so the little stuffed animal went around and they each shared, and many of them didn't like it. And one little girl who I don't know her, but she had this really soft, quiet demeanor. She just shared a solution. Like, I think what we should do is when kids are talking, give them a silent signal, and then we should just get back to work. And then she passed to the next. And it felt so big to me because she seemed like one of those kids who wouldn't be bossy and sharing. And so the thing went all the way around, and there was this lovely energy in the room. And I almost want to reflect back to what Eva said, is when you hand the problem to kids, they're usually willing to solve it instead of saying, you're gonna behave. Like, why is this not working today? What can we do differently? And And it was the real class problem that the teacher had, and they talked it through themselves. And there was this just lovely vibe. I almost had goosebumps. It was such a lovely vibe in the room. That's the difference between some like packaged social emotional programs and positive discipline. We got the real problem with real kids in real time, which I think is just powerful.
Yeah, and I will add to that. And so and Dodie had said earlier, there are tools for teachers and tools for kids. And what the tools for kids do is teach them skills for managing these situations. We wouldn't necessarily jump into a circle. We could try and say, do you have ideas about how to solve the problem? And there are some foundational skills behind that we teach kids along the way. And so the curriculum can be taught, like maybe one lesson a week, might take about 20 minutes of class time to actually teach the skill or the lesson. And then what you do from there is you watch for organic opportunities to show up, because they will, because we've got human beings trying to be in the same, four walls together. There are going to be problems. And so we watch for opportunities to use that skill. So maybe we learned about a skill called the brain in the palm of the hand, where we talk about what happens when we're stressed and our brains are dysregulated, and how we're kind of exploding either internally or externally. And so we teach kids. It's a Dr. Dan Siegel is the originator of this tool, but it's so useful. And so when we teach kids about what it feels like in our bodies to be dysregulated, what kinds of things are happening in our brains when we're dysregulated. And usually when we're using behaviors under dysregulation, we're not even aware of it. We're just going. And so we teach this skill to the kids. And then after that, we can watch for kids to say, hey, it looks like you might be flipping your lid a little bit. And we can use this little hand gesture. It seems like you're here. What could you do to help yourself get back so that your brain is fully functioning again? Let's talk about some skills you could use right now. And so it only took me maybe 15 minutes to teach that tool to the kids, but I'm going to reinforce the learning in real time, real situations to help them start to really use that and apply it in their life. And the same goes for problem solving skills. How do we listen respectfully as we're going around the circle? How do we become more aware of what we think and what we feel about a situation? And what are solutions that we can think of that are helpful to solving the problem rather than hurtful to somebody else, either emotionally or physically? And so there's a lot of skill building in there that happens at a really organic level. And what I've seen happen is that when we utilize those skills and tools with kids, again, this connection, this sense of trust develops and deepens over time. And so trust between students and trust between the students and the teacher. And when we have that level of trust, again, that connection, that relationship deepens, and we can really, really work to solve what seem like maybe insurmountable deep level problems really fairly quickly. And then we practice the solution. We come back and say, hey, is our solution working? If yes, we keep doing it. If no, well, let's talk about what part of it's not working. And let's come back to it and try another solution, so that we're constantly learning that, oh, sometimes they don't get it right the first time. And that's okay. I just keep thinking about other ways I could solve the problem.
Yeah.
And that's what we do as adults. So we need kids to learn how to do that too. And so it's just such an organically based program, if that makes sense, in a way that I haven't. And as a school counselor, I have used other programs that we tried to teach kids skills. But as Dodie said, there isn't a lot of transfer between the hypothetical and the real life, because you don't have the connection to the problem that you do when you are really solving a real life problem.
I totally agree. And it is the how it's taught. I'll never forget, Dodie, how you explained, the what in the Adlerian approach is known as vertical, which are kind of top down to versus horizontal relationships. And you just used your arm, and it's these really practical ways of teaching that make that difference, right? And what you just mentioned, Eva, and which is something I really love about it as well. I think, Dodie, you said, I can't remember. I just wrote down your beautiful quotes. I should have put who said what, but I didn't have the time. So there was something that was shared in the training by either of you, and it was that solutions are consequences, but consequences are not always solutions. And that is for me, the uniqueness about positive discipline, right? Because it's how the student or the child in a parent-child dynamic perceives it. That's where the learning is. Are we blaming others, or are we looking for solutions? Would either of you like to share a little bit more on that? Yes.
Well, I would just a little like what Eva was saying in the classroom, like you're
Mhm.
always on the lookout, like what's happening in the classroom. And before positive discipline, I would be looking for problems and I'd be sure to be on that kid, you know? And now when problems occur, I go, oh, I know what I need to teach. They don't know how to problem solve between each other, or they don't know how to take turns,
Mhm.
or they don't know how to respond in a respectful way. So like I'm looking for the tool they're missing as opposed to punishing them for not knowing the tool.
Yeah.
Like, teach them skills as opposed to punishing them for not having skills. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Eva, that was something you said as well. If the child isn't behaving the way I want them to behave, what can I possibly role model differently? Isn't that's exactly that idea, isn't it?
Yeah, I have to model for them what I want from them. And that's like I think you mentioned earlier that whole idea of a vertical relationship where the adult says, child, you have to respect me no matter what because I'm the adult, but I don't have to give you respect until you earn it. Well, what we're doing in positive discipline is saying, oh, okay, we're going to come here to a horizontal place. And it doesn't mean that teachers don't have power. It doesn't mean we don't set boundaries or have expectations. We do. And so in some ways, yes, there's some verticality going on, but really what the horizontal place is about is recognizing that all human beings are owed dignity and respect. And to tell the truth, when I'm being my punitive self and I'm flipping my lid and I'm dysregulated, I'm losing my own dignity. I'm not kidding, and my dignity is really out the window. And I'm probably disrespecting the child and throwing their dignity out the window too. So if I want respect, I need to model respect. If I want, like Dodie said, self-regulation from kids, I need to model self-regulation. So I've got to be really honest and transparent with kids saying, you know what, I feel like my lid's slipping a little bit. I need just 60 seconds. And maybe you can help me with this to just do some deep breathing and get myself recentered. Could you all help me with that? Because kids love to be helpful, because we really speak to the core of who they are, which is helpful. And we got to bring that forward and draw it forth from them. And we can do that. And positive discipline gives us tools for doing that.
I love it. When you speak, there's so many things that I want to ask, and I know you don't need much preparation, but isn't that one of the most powerful things from a teacher's point of view to also say, look, guys, I just need a minute, and to sometimes admit that, that it is human. I can't possibly be seen to make mistakes, which is one of these big principles in our approach to have the courage to be imperfect. Have you maybe a personal example why that does work and why it is okay if you are confident enough to share one or two,
So I just had an experience a couple weeks ago. So this is actually a great story, but it was horrible. So Annette, I wish I'd have kept you in mind. My husband's a teacher, and we took 30 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to Ireland and Scotland for a week.
No way.
Yes.
36.
And
Say that again. I got the numbers wrong. How many? 36?
30. 30.
30?
6th, 7th, and 8th graders.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
To Ireland and Scotland. And there were some adults, there were some, support staff there. And I had 6 girls. And they were challenging. They were pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And there was a day on the bus. I hadn't slept well that night, no excuses. and I I barked at one. And because anyway, they were sitting not where they were supposed to, blah, 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 blah. I just kind of, and then they moved seats. I sat down and I was so mad on the bus. And I was trying to calm myself down, but I was mad. And that whole day, it was not a good day. Like the whole day wasn't good. The girls weren't making eye contact with me. They were pushing me out. I mean, the whole day. I had a parent with me, and the parent took them a little bit in the museum, and I sat next to just a mom who was on the trip and cried because it was so not fun, and it was not fun. And the day finished, and I'm in the hotel room with my husband. I'm like, I gotta fix this. I can't do today. I can't do this again tomorrow. And I'm like, I know what I gotta do. I gotta apologize. Yeah, but nope. I need to apologize regardless of what she did. So in the morning, I saved a booth for us. So we all sat in a booth, and I just straight up apologized, gave no, what's the word I'm looking for? No excuses, even though there were many, but I gave none. I kept it all to myself, straight up apologized, just took all the ownership of it. Asked if we could have a better day, blah, blah, blah. That day was so much better. And that girl was super cooperative that day. Like me owning up to my big, not pretty scene really shifted so much with that student. And again, I only know these girls for 6 days. Like there's not a lot of time to create relationships and trust. And so my point being, like, you can blow it, but then to take ownership for it, model the right thing, even if you don't want to at the moment, right? Because, I had a lot of, anyway. And even if you practice this work for a long time, you're still going to be imperfect at it. And it made everything so much better. Like, I was so grateful that I realized that's what I needed to do to make the next few days better and to make it right with her.
Thank you so much for sharing this, because I think when one teacher starts to share it, it just gives this ripple effect to give other teachers permission as well, because that deep ingrained fear of I'm going to lose all authority if I do apologize, right? What are your thoughts? Why is this so hard? And why do you get more respect from students when you take some ownership? Any thoughts?
I have a couple of thoughts, and then I'm going to toss it to Eva.
Yeah.
I think for me, the challenge really was I did not have a good night the night before. I wasn't feeling like, there were so many reasons that I was extra grumpy in the morning, and she doesn't care. I still gave her the business, so even if I told her all that, it doesn't matter. It still felt terrible, awful, horrible, right? So it was important that I didn't add any of that in, because she doesn't care, right? Just like I don't care if she gives me the business. I don't care. Well, I do care the reasons, because I'm the adult and I'm curious about what's underneath. But in the moment, right? And I think the other thing is, when I had them all sit at the table, all the kids heard my apology. It builds trust that I'm going to take ownership for my stuff, right? I'm not perfect. I'm not here, right? I'm just with them on this journey, and I'm imperfect too. And just really taking ownership for it helps them know that they're heard, they can make mistakes. I think it creates trust. Eva, what do you think? What's your viewpoint on all that?
Yeah, and I think you've said it so beautifully and touched on the things that I would say too, is that, when I was in the classroom, in the school system, in the counseling office, there were times where I was having a lousy day, or I was just stressed about, this, that, and the other thing, but it came out in how I was being with the kids in the classroom. And there were a number of times where I would, take a student aside if there was an opportunity in the moment, or the next day find them and say, you know what, yesterday I was not respectful to you. It's not okay. And I just want to let you know I'm sorry, and I will work to do better. And the surprise on kids' faces is what really stands out for me, is they were so rarely exposed to an adult, whether it was a parent or a teacher or administrator or whatever, who was willing to say, I'm not perfect either. And again, that gives them the opportunity to see me as a human being, which is really what I want. It's what I need. In order for us to have a relationship, we both have to see each other as human beings who are walking in the world together. And how can we support each other in this experience? And again, it's that I gotta have connection, or my connection will not take hold. My correction will not take hold. And so modeling for them what we want from them is just such a really important piece of that. And we were not raised to, many of us were not raised to believe that or understand that or experience that. And so it's a paradigm shift for a lot of people to be able to say, you know what, apologizing doesn't take away my power. It actually gives me more, because the child is willing to say, okay, I respect you, I care about you because you respect and care about me. So now I actually have more power to influence, and I don't mean influence in a manipulative way, but to influence the behavior of the other person because I have that connection and relationship with them. So I haven't actually said that before, but I like that. I want to write it down for myself. When I apologize, I don't give up power, I got more power. And I, again, mean that in a really positive, productive way, not in a manipulative way. Because if you try to use these skills to manipulate, kids will see that in a heartbeat, and you'll lose connection.
Absolutely. And that's also something I heard in your training, you know, that when we talk about the vertical and the love for power, you changed it so beautifully in that it's the power of love instead. And that, right, having that courage to make mistakes, that comes from love. That is powerful, loving emotions, isn't it? And maybe it is this generation of parents and teachers who are asked to take that courageous step and break these patterns, right? Because it is a bit of a shift of patterns that are passed on from one generation to another to not.
Can I speak to the bigger social picture of that really quick?
Yeah.
Because what's coming up for me here is that in our adult world out here, and when we look at least in the US, at what we experience in the social conversation, and when you look at, you know, people who are seen as influential, politicians and other leaders out there, when they make mistakes, people are so unforgiving and act like, okay, so I cannot respect you or vote for you or go along with anything that you're doing because you made this mistake or you changed your mind. So therefore you're a flip-flopper and I can't trust your current point of view. And what I would like to see happening is that we accept that, okay, our leaders are human beings too. And if our leaders had the trust to be able to say, I made a mistake, or I learned more about this situation, and that's why my opinion changed, because, gosh, I didn't know all these other things, but that I know now, and this is what I really think is important. If we could allow that to happen on a broader scale, I think we would have less divisiveness in our culture, in our society. I think we could be more solution focused rather than people thinking compromise and collaboration are bad words. And they're not. They're what we need to be both independent and interdependent as human beings in society. And so what my vision through positive discipline is that we create families, classrooms, schools, and then a broader community of kids who have skills that we didn't get when we were growing up. And imagine if we start even at the preschool level with the early childhood program, and we teach and help kids practice these skills all the way through high school graduation. Imagine the skills that this whole generation would have to take out there in the work world, in the community, into politics or wherever they decide to step into the world. What a whole much more skilled society we would be, and what could we accomplish if that was the case? So that's my vision. That's what I work toward, and I know Dodie does too. That it starts in little bitty pieces, and it grows.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, that can be so powerful. The more people that we can get to say, hey, this is what we need for kids. This is what we need for ourselves.
you're saying the early education, there's such a focus at the moment, and this is maybe a topic for a whole other day. I think, Eva, we touched on it in email correspondence. We've now shifted here in Ireland and the UK, from where the whole smartphone discussion is. Parents and educators are saying, well, the teens, it's way too late for that. We need to get into the early education, but I think that kind of resignation isn't a solution either, because that needs to come for everyone. I'm just going to park that thought. But I want to also just to add to what you said, Eva, was what was so powerful in the training was, when you presented that activity, how you demonstrated how as a society, it's so vertical still in institutions we find now and hierarchical. And we can make a change to this more mutual respectful and dignity and respect way of being in the world. And you just whipped out this activity. I shared this with you before, where you explained in formal activity and role play how this works. And I had a penny drop, where I realized nobody is too small to make a difference. It really is one teacher, one parent, one child at a time. And I would maybe, before I ask my last questions, what are your thoughts on how you've seen this in action over the years you've already spent doing this work?
Go ahead, Dod.
So ask that question again.
Yes. So, sometimes when we hear there's a society is a certain way, and then a teacher or a parent might come and say, what difference do I make? And your activity, from laddership to leadership activity, it was so powerful that I saw no parent is superfluous. We all make a difference. Every teacher makes a difference in this world. So some kind of encouraging words for teachers that it is worth it. Even if you're the only teacher in your school who does this training, why is it worth it and why does it work?
Well, I think growth and change happens one person at a time, and planting seeds or planting skills in individual students, in individual teachers, that is what grows up, like from small seeds. And if I can just add, I did a parenting class last night, and one of the questions was, I asked them, who was influential in your life? Who made an influence in your life? And only 2 people shared, and both of them shared teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all grown-ups.
Wow.
This teacher inspired me here. This other teacher inspired here. And what I think it's easy for teachers to forget is, I'm just a teacher. You are the biggest influence for those 180 days of that children's life that year. Like, you really, really are an influence. And just genuinely to show up as your best self. The way I like to think of it is, we all have glasses on how we view the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And depending, no matter how your parents are, if I'm the child, how my parents are, I think that's how the whole world is, because this is my life. But then you go to school and you see teachers who are different, and you're like, oh, but in Miss Dwight's class, it's a little different. Like, she talks kindly to me, and but in the world, it's a little harsh, and but in Miss Dwight's class, it's different. And that we can show our kids a different way, even if they're parented differently. We can show them these skills and show them the tools, and that there could be a different way. And if there's more than one teacher that they get who has these skills, whoo. Or if there's children, if the kids go to a school that's a positive discipline lab school, whoo, they get it year after year after year. And what's beautiful about that is the kids then go home and share tools. Truthfully, kids go home and share tools to their parents. So it's a bigger ripple than we think. I think so. Even don't need anything.
Yeah, and that makes me think of when I was doing this work as a school counselor, and I was doing the work to become a positive discipline trainer. I had been a parent educator and a classroom educator, and a trainer is another step forward with a lot of detailed work and experiences that we have to have before becoming trainers. and so I was in the classroom with a science teacher co-teaching the classroom curriculum with kids. And so these were 7th and 8th graders. And I remember particularly in the 8th grade class, when we started at the beginning of the year, like the 3rd week of school, this boy really stood out to me as one of those who was just kind of different. And maybe a little outside the accepted group, right? Like people were kind of, because he was different, and like his behaviors were kind of irritating, and to me as the adult, and I know to the kids too. And what I saw evolve over time, a couple of things happened there that were just so magical, that there's an activity called compliments and appreciations, and we really encourage doing this activity at least once a week with kids, where we encourage them to watch for others in the classroom who do things that are helpful to them or that they appreciate about you, the other student. And then we go around the circle, like Dodie said, and share, Dodie, I appreciate you helping me with that math problem because I just couldn't figure it out. And because of that, I was able to finish the rest of my homework. That was really helpful. And so we teach kids the language and structure of giving and receiving compliments. And that activity in and of itself, if you do nothing else and you only do compliments and appreciations regularly with kids, does so much to build cohesiveness, because what happens is that you, the teacher, can notice which kid isn't getting compliments and maybe pull aside a nice child to say, I wonder if you could watch this student during the week and be ready to give that person a compliment next week. There are other ways you can structure that. There might be, like at a certain point, we were having kids pull out a name out of a jar, and that was the person you were going to give a compliment to next week. So everybody didn't get their best friends or whatever. And so because everybody was getting a compliment from somebody, that child was, first of all, the other kids had to look for something good that he was doing or something good about him. And then they stated it publicly to the others in the class. And so not only does he hear it and go, oh, yeah, I feel appreciated. I feel noticed. I feel like I belong. Other kids were saying, oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that about, I hadn't noticed that before. I'm going to watch for that. Like, it brings forward the consciousness. And I truly believe that when we have kids who are feeling outside of the group, this speaks back to Adler's belief in the human motivation is not reward versus punishment. It's a need for belonging and significance. When I feel like I belong to the group and that my contribution to the group is valued, I am more likely to use what Adler would call socially useful behavior. It's useful to me, both in the small picture and my big picture, and it's useful to the group. And so when I don't feel like I belong, when I don't feel like I'm valued in some way, then my behavior is going to demonstrate my lack of that feeling. And in a weird way, the behavior is designed to unconsciously designed to help that child try to achieve belonging and significance. But what it does, because it's usually what Adler would call socially useless behavior, not good for the person, it's not good for the group, it builds walls instead of bridges. And then the distance continues to grow. And what happens for that child in the classroom, in the school, is that they continue to, as Dodie said, look through those glasses and say, I'm not appreciated here. I don't feel like I belong here. And I feel hurt. So I will hurt others because darn it, they're going to pay attention to me and they're going to know how much they hurt me because my behavior is going to tell them that. And I believe truly that child by the end of the year, I mean, even by the end of the first semester, was a cohesive member of that group. His behaviors had shifted, his demeanor had shifted, his cohesiveness in the group was established, that trust was there, everything shifted for him. And when we use this curriculum and we use this work with kids, it has the power to help every child feel you do matter, you do belong, you are important to our group. And that's the source of getting more socially useful behavior from these children. And so I saw the power of that in so many different ways, but that was just one example, that it has the power to change who kids are and their experience in the world and how they show up. So I just really, that to me is one of the biggest reasons to do this work, is to make sure that no child gets left behind, no child falls through the cracks. They all feel like they're important and matter, because they do.
Mm.
Oh, sorry, I'm
Really,
I just
think
want
Dodie-
to share, I want to share this lovely little story. So when Eva's kids were young, sometimes they'd come to my house after school, and her youngest was probably in 3rd grade, and I had walked to the school to walk him home, and my daughter and we were walking home, and her son is just brilliant. Like, he just gets things. And we were just walking, you know, he's 3rd grade. He's what, 7, 8 years old. And I said, so how was your day today? How are your friends in your class? And he said, Dodie, they are not my friends. They're my acquaintances. I was like, oh, whoa. Like, in his classroom, that was the truth, because the teacher had not created this cohesiveness, and he was not fooled by calling them friends. Like, he knew the difference between acquaintances and friends, and it just blew me away. And it made me a little sad that his teacher didn't have the skills to create that connected feeling in the classroom. So most kids, I don't think in 3rd grade, know the word acquaintance, but they know the feeling. They know what it feels like when we feel connected to others in the classroom, or we don't feel connected. So it's powerful.
Yeah, it really, really is. And that, you know, what you shared, the tool of appreciation. So I think it's called in the manual appreciation and compliments. And I was presenting this. So, you know, when you present something, you really dive deep into it. And at my middle-aged age, I learned something about how to receive a compliment. And this, for anybody who maybe struggles with receiving a compliment, I don't know if it's the same over in the US, but here, you know, if somebody, especially a woman, receives a compliment, was so quick to say, you know, that was nothing. That was just a tenner in the cheapest shop in Cork here where I live, you know. So all that is required is just to say, thank you. So simple. It kind of sums up positive discipline for me. It is so simple. It doesn't require that much effort, which brings me to my last question. And I think, Eva, you just so beautifully answered it almost, but please feel free to come in again. So, you know, with teachers who have so much to do, and here I'm recording this just after Easter here in Ireland, it's now coming to year-end exams, you know, for all the different grades and classes. So there's so much to do in closing the year. And when teachers hear another thing to do and to add onto their plate, you know, what is your advice or your recommendation? And I think appreciations is one of them that works so beautifully. But what can a teacher do, like a micro change in the classroom, you know, that doesn't take a lot of time, but has a behavior change in the class that is more, and thanks, Eva, for bringing this word in, more on the useful side of life, you know? So feel free to share in closing.
So I'll go. So honestly, my first thought on that is compliments and appreciations. And Eva covered that so nicely. I'm just going to kind of piggyback. One of the tools, and you might have talked about it already, is encouragement. And very often, I don't know about many of the teachers on the call here, but I was taught praise. Like, I was taught praise in the College of Education, like, you're so great, and that's the best. And praise is not as useful. So to combine compliments and encouragement, so to say things like, I noticed, or I appreciate, right? I noticed you got started on your math. Thank you. I appreciate that you lined up quietly. So just using encouragement vocabulary instead of praise, because praise feels empty, like nobody's the best, like nobody's the best. And if I'm the best, well, then you two clearly aren't the best, right? Like, so it ends up being a put down for all the other kids in the class. So I would roll in compliments and appreciations with encouragement. I noticed you, just nice and clean, or I appreciate that you, super clean. I would just start with that tiny, tiny piece.
I love that.
Yeah.
And there's so much research out there as well, right? Why praise is all about just the tip of the iceberg and doesn't really connect to the heart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, encouragement is more targeted, it's more specific, and it acknowledges the process rather than the product. So Dodie, I know you've said many times in our training that I can typically only offer praise when I'm looking at the end product and somebody did well, but I can offer encouragement anywhere through the process because I can notice, hey, you tried this, you really put effort into that. How did that effort pay off for you? Or what did you learn from what didn't work for you? I can give encouragement anywhere along the way. And so when we look at being more specific in how we give kids feedback, I noticed this, what did you learn from that? I have faith that you will get to where you want to go because you're demonstrating these qualities. And I'll just say Carol Dweck speaks a lot to that in her work on fixed versus growth mindset. And just to go back to the topic of belonging and significance, there is so much research, even in these last couple of decades, on what they're calling mattering. Adler called it belonging and significance, and Dreikers, who was his colleague and brought the work forward, especially in the classroom, they referred to it as belonging and significance. These days it's being called the importance of mattering. It's the same thing. And so there is more and more research being done on these concepts. It says 100 years ago, when Adler first started saying this, people kind of were like, yeah, I don't know. But over time, there's been more and more evidence that he really had it right. This is what really matters. And so I would say to teachers, besides compliments and encouragement, I would say watch for, like what Dodie was saying earlier, when we're seeing a misbehavior, see that as the kernel nugget of a skill that you want to teach. And what is that nugget? And how could you use this opportunity to help that child practice taking a baby step toward the skill you want them to develop? And I think that, again, is a paradigm shift. And I think it's one that you could make, that once you do that a few times, you go, oh, wow, that was really impactful. And so I think there are so many little things we can be doing to start to create that shift. And that it impacts your enjoyment as a teacher.
Absolutely.
Right? Because people went into teaching because they love kids, they love their subject area, they want to make a difference. And when they're faced with a lot of the bureaucracy and a lot of the behaviors that kids are demonstrating because they have these needs that aren't being met, it's no fun to go to work every day. And we're seeing teachers in the US quit the profession in droves. Young people are not even going into it in the first place. We have a teacher shortage like crazy here in the US. And so I would say one of the primary reasons for looking into this work and starting to practice it is because when kids have skills, you get to spend more time connecting with them, more time teaching the subject that you like, more time enjoying the children that you want to help. And what a gift that is to you, to be able to say, I can't wait to go to work today, to be with my students, to be in my community that we've created together. What a gift that is to you as a human being and somebody who really does want to make a difference in the world.
Oh, I love that as in closing, and maybe also the setup of schools is going to help here in Ireland. You know, it's going to be, hopefully, what I'm hearing is it'll be not all about the grade at the end of the year. You know, it'll be a lot more project work that is kind of part of the final grade, and maybe one day we can get rid of grades altogether, because it is just such a form of discouragement, isn't it? Like for some reason, I had my, don't know what you call it, probably report card in the US. I was looking at my report card when I left school in East Germany, you know, decades ago. And in English, I always loved English and French and all the foreign languages, but I had a D- and I almost failed English. It was one of my worst grades, even though I loved it the most. And I, for some reason, was able to encourage myself because I wanted to learn what they sing about in the songs and music. So I had this internal encouragement to keep going with English and leave Germany at the age of 18 anyway, you know. So that isn't the be all and end all, and positive discipline has the best skills for that, for teachers, right? To make it about the worth of the human being rather than the final number or letter on a report card.
Yeah.
I'm going to, we're running out of time. I would like you to share maybe at the end what your next training is that either teachers or parents can sign up to. I'm going to link all your links below the video description box, in the video description box, and any final thoughts?
Dodie, why don't you tell them about our ECE and anything else that you have going on?
All right, tell me if I have this right. So Eva and I together, because we love facilitating together, we're doing an early childhood educator positive discipline training. Coming up in April. For us, it's April 13th, 14th, which is Saturday, Sunday, 20th, 21st, and 27th. So it's Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Saturday. And for us, it's 11 a.m. Pacific time to 2 p.m. Pacific time.
Brilliant.
So it's 3 hours each day, except the last day it's 2 hours. And we would love to have you. This is for people who work in early childhood, for parents who have young children, for anybody who works with young children. It's going to give you extra great skills. Eva, any more on that?
Yeah, we often have people internationally. So we already have somebody in Germany who's coming and somebody in France who's coming. And so as long as you can figure out the time zone difference, it doesn't matter that we're in the US, because we have this amazing technology that lets us come in and connect. And Annette, you were able to take our training last fall because of that. And so, yes, if no matter where you live in the world, we would love to have you join us for that. If you work with children ages 0 to 6 years old, if you're a caregiver, a babysitter, a nanny, a teacher, a teacher's aide, and a parent of a child that young. Note that what we will do will be largely focused on people who are running groups of kids in a classroom type setting. And I truly believe that if you're the parent of a child ages 0 to 6, you will take so much that will be helpful for you as a parent through these early years with your child. So open to anybody who would just like to learn more.
Thank you.
Can I add grandparent?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Which Eva is now, right? Dodie, you're not yet, are you? Eva is a grandparent. Thank you so much. Yes, absolutely. I'm also going to add with all the details, the time zone, the website, so everybody can put in their time zone, see if it suits. And on that classroom training, there were people from all over the world, from the Middle East, right? So it really works, and it is so enjoyable. I highly recommend it. The time absolutely flew, and I just wanted more and more and more of it. So I'm going to leave it here, and we would love to welcome comments, from who watches this, and even maybe suggestions from future topics, because I would love to have you on again. So thank you so much. I'm going to leave it here.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Annette.